Okay, this is going to be a video on how to adjust your belt deflection. We'll start with the primary. This bolt here is left hand thread. Take the primary bolt out. Special puller for the primary. I like to put a little bit of grease on here in the tip. Even though the primary bolt is left hand thread, the primary puller is right hand thread. It goes into a different set of threads. So tighten that up. Take the primary off with the belt. Belt has an arrow on it for direction of travel. Make sure it goes on the same way. Now the primary's off, I'm going to take the secondary off. This bolt is right hand thread, which is normal. Let's remove the secondary. Now the secondary here has this mark on the front and then a 0 on the back. They have to line up in order to phase the clutch properly between the two sheaves. The primary also has alignment marks, arrow on the face plate, and then again inside. If you ever take it apart, make sure they line up again. So now we're going to take the spring off. Some guys make their own spring compressor. This is a rotor off one of our machines. That's all I use. I used to use a small block Chevy flywheel. Now I have to kind of put out on this because I'm not your typical V-Force rider at 250 pounds. Take the clip off. Be careful when you let go. You might be going to the dentist for a couple new front teeth. Take your spring off. Spring retainer. Thrust washer. Now you can see here, pull the sheave up. It doesn't want to come off. It's because your helix buttons are inside. You have to pop them out. It's a little tough for you to see what I'm doing, but they have a little groove in them. You just get your screwdriver in there and just pop them out. They basically just fall out. There's 4 of them. Okay, you get all 4 out. Just lift your movable sheave off. Just like so. My belt deflection on this was sitting about 28.5 millimeters. So what I want to do is I want to remove a shim, which I've already done, which was this shim right here, but just going through it again to show you guys what to do. They'll come with multiple shims in there. Here's the other one. Now this one is 1 mil. The one I took out, 0.8 of a mil. Now for every 0.1 of a mil, it'll change your deflection 1.3 mils. So you just have to do some basic math there and decide how much deflection you need to get rid of and remove the proper thickness of shim. You can buy different thicknesses from Kawasaki to get the belt deflection where you want it to be. So now once I decide what shim I'm going to use, or shims in a pack, put them back on, and you'll take your movable sheet, You can wipe this out and clean it out. Put some new grease in. Don't put too much in. Lightly oil your seals, or grease your seals, sorry. Set her back in place. There's your mark on the front. Line it up with the 0 on the back. I will take and clean these up and just put a light film of grease on those. Just slide them into the helix grooves. Push them outwards. Now, if you don't have your sheaves lined up, it'll be pretty tough to find the hole where they belong. Now when you lightly grease these, you don't want to put too much grease on the buttons, or you'll push them in and you'll get trapped air behind them and they'll want to pop back out, so just put a little bit in there. You see I'm just wiggling the movable sheet back and forth just a little bit just to help me align it. There. Put the snap ring in place. Make sure it's in the groove all the way around. Like I said, you don't want to go to the dentist. Release. Now what I've done is, by removing the shim, these sheaves come closer together, allowing your belt to travel higher in the secondary. And when it travels higher in the secondary all the way around, it tightens up the belt on the primary. So now you just install the secondary back on. Beveled washers, they're both beveled. They only go on one way. Now both these torque specs are 69 foot-pounds. It's virtually impossible to put a torque wrench on there, because you have to hold the secondary while you tighten it. I use a torque stick. This one here is for 75 foot-pounds. It's the closest I have to 69. Purpose of them is it'll torque it up to 75 and no more. After that it absorbs the impact blows. So hold the secondary tight back. Secondary's done. Now I'm going to install the primer. Make sure the crank is clean and dry. You don't want any oil or grease on there. Same thing within the primary. Take your belt, arrow proper way. Again, primary bolt is left-hand thread. with an impact, but if you do that, you're playing with fire, in my opinion. Because the clutch will go, if you put it on too tight, the clutch will go in and the fins will hit the diffuser plate, opening up the taper on the back side of your clutch, and then the fixed sheet is basically junk after that. So I put my pry bar in here. You're not going to do any damage to your clutch. You got your faceplate on supporting, and you're not putting a tremendous amount of torque on this. So just tighten her up to 69 foot-pounds. Make sure you have a torque wrench that torques both ways. Most torque wrenches will only torque the normal way, which would be right-hand thread. Now what I'll do initially to check the deflection on the belt is I'll lay a bar across from in here, top of the belt to the top of the belt. Push down on the belt with what the manual says is 13 pounds of force, and then you measure this distance. If it's between 22 and 27, you're good to go. Like I said, this one I start off at about 28 and a half. Now if you start your quad and it's squealing in gear, and then you put it neutral and the squealing stops, your deflection's about perfect, and that's about as close as you're going to get.